best fantasy show on Amazon Prime is not The Rings of Power. It is not The Wheel of Time. It is, without a doubt, Vox Machina. I love this show. It's based on the Critical Role tabletop campaign. It's hilarious. It's action-packed. Sometimes it's very dark. Sometimes it's very violent. It's definitely not safe for work. But it's a great show. I loved season 1 so much. I've watched it 3 times, and season 2 is just about to air in just a couple days, actually, on Amazon Prime. So in this interview, I talk with Ashley Johnson, who plays Pike, and you'll know Ashley Johnson also is in the new Last of Us show. She also played Ellie in the video games. Travis Willingham, who plays Grog. Matthew Mercer does a bunch of different voices. He plays in the first season the villain, and he plays a villain in the second season as well. Taliesin Jaffe, who plays Percy, and yeah. So we talk with these amazing voice actors and actors who do such a good job in this show, who are all executive producers in the show. I have a part 2 with several more actors. They are also executive producers in the show. And it's a wonderful show. I hope you enjoy this interview. We just talk about season 2 and kind of, shoot the shit about this and that. So enjoy. Yeah, I'm Eric Kane. I write for Forbes. And hi, nice to meet all of you.
Pleasure to meet you.
I've watched the first season of Vox Machina 3 times already, so.
Oh shit!
Oh
yeah.
my goodness!
Yeah, but I've never watched Critical Role, so going into this with that perspective, I know it's weird, but
No, we love that.
That's great.
It's my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, so I thought we'd go maybe one by one. You guys could say your names, your character, and one unique thing or flaw about your character that makes them distinct in this story.
Nice. Maddie, go.
Okay. I voice a number of characters, but in this season I primarily voice Umbrasyl. There's one of the dragons of the Chroma Conclave. They're a terrifying ancient beast of sly intellect and greedy intent. And one of their major flaws is they are a slimy weasel that is out for themselves.
Nice. Taliesin?
My name is Taliesin Jaffe. I voice Percival de Rollo, and he thinks, despite all evidence to the contrary, that he is always the smartest person in the room.
AJ?
Boy, oh boy. Well, I am Ashley Johnson, and I play Pike Trickfoot, who is the healer of the group and the resident mama bear. And I feel like a flaw of hers would probably be she has a hard time trusting and believing in herself. And so that's been part of her journey.
Nice. I'm Travis Willingham. I play Grog Strongjaw, who is easily the highest thinker of the group, an intellect and scholar of incredible renown. Grog is a lovable mountain of muscle who loves shiny things, is easily distracted by anything that moves or twinkles, but is also capable of tremendous feats of rage. But his biggest fault is that he often forgets where his strength and really where his foundation comes from, and he thinks that he can solve anything by punching it or smashing it. And he will learn from his friends that it's more than that. We'll leave it there.
Nice. I always think that flaws are a more interesting way to think about characters, than especially in a campaign, necessarily than strengths. So speaking of taking a campaign and translating it to a TV show, I mean, what were some of the challenges of bringing these characters and these stories from a free-flowing campaign into a scripted and more linear story?
I'll jump off here and say one of the benefits of adapting from the campaign is we know where the story's going, and we can, very clearly see the kind of the general trajectory of where it'll eventually get to. But the challenge then lies in taking hundreds of hours of us improvising through this story and condensing it down to the important beats for the overall narrative, and the moments that are important to us as players and for the characters that the players are, played at the table. And so that has been an extensive challenge, but a really thrilling one too, to like sit down together and talk about which moments are important, which things can change or can be rearranged in the timeline to still fit them in, which things can be plussed now that it's not improvised and we have the time and the group mindset of making things even a little more cool than they were at the table. So it's definitely presented some challenges, but nothing that hasn't been its own exciting endeavor to jump towards.
I think
What
you
is
kind
this?
of nailed it.
Yeah, that was a great answer. What does the process look like? Like, how do you how collaborative is this? How do you go from that campaign to like the writers' room to the process of actually developing the show? Like, what is everybody's involvement here?
It's an interesting one, right? It's actually been one of the great joys of the process in bringing outside writers into the IP. Now we're so familiar with it. We have the moments that we love. We're pretty familiar with what fans responded to and what they're expecting to see. But the nice thing about working with our amazing partners at Amazon and these writers is that they're coming to it with fresh eyes and a fresh perspective. So if as we're moving through something, they say like, I don't quite understand this, or why is this relationship the way that it is, or can we hit this more so that it makes sense? We are, in fact, working it from the outside in to make sure that people that are coming to the show new, like yourself, who've never seen, the hundreds of hours of live play, are getting a story delivery that's interesting, funny, captivating, and makes you want to come back for more. And we're hoping for many, many seasons of this show. We don't try and tell stories in a truncated sense, but it's really interesting, sitting there, picking the moments from the stories, and then bringing them together and going, how can we keep it fresh for our existing fans, and how can we tweak it and maybe streamline it a bit more so that it'll deliver a story that really keeps people captivated. So, bringing those fresh eyes to it, I think was the one of the secret ingredients in all of it.
Yeah, and to jump off that too, like we're all executive producers in the project, so we're collaborating with all the writers and the showrunner at pretty much every stage. Sam and Travis are helming, the lion's share of our perspective through the entire process, and every script goes through the entire cast for punch-ups and for to make sure the dialogue matches the tone of the characters and the intent that we want, and kind of to ensure that we're all still moving in lockstep and that everything is genuine and honest to what we originally created. So it sounds like a lot of moving pieces that shouldn't work and cause a lot of terrifying complications. But thankfully, we care about each other a lot and care about this a lot. And everyone we've been partnering with has been very, not just respectful of that dynamic, but also has been an absolute pleasure to work with. It's worked out wonderfully in many ways that we were scared it wouldn't.
Yeah.
What have been some surprises going into this project? Like some things that you weren't really expecting, but popped up and.
I can say just from an animation perspective, the design process has been perhaps one of the most rewarding. Seeing things actually come to life, seeing artists take, their takes on weapons, items, vestiges, backgrounds, costumes, all those things. That's really fun for us. But the challenge of animating a show with so many main characters, a large group, I think most animation studios would tell you is fairly high. You're just tracking a lot of different characters and trying to figure out how to deliver a story where there isn't a posse of people moving and having to be drawn at a really high quality level. Add to that, off of season one, four massive ancient dragons. It definitely caught our Titmouse and animation studio peers, not by surprise, but we often joke that we had to sit them down, give them a back massage, buy them dinner, give them a couple drinks, and apologize in advance. But they found a really fantastic way to blend some CG assets with 2D, and we feel deliver a really interesting take on dragons where you can see the intelligence, you can see their personalities, you can feel the dynamic between them as they're going about their machinations. And we won't lie, it was a thing that we really had to adapt to. It was a big challenge, and so as we move forward in the story, the question we frequently get from our animators is, how many other big monsters? What other big things are there? How much more of this are we doing? And we'll say like, hey, the chroma conclave is a doozy. So once we get to the end of that, maybe there's a respite in your future.
I would say that characters in season one who maybe underwent the largest sort of dynamic arcs were Pike and Percy. Pike with her struggles with her own faith, and Percy with his obviously horrifying, tragic childhood and background that was pretty dark. So,
Eh,
yeah, he got revenge, so everything's fine now, right?
Totally.
That's how PTSD works. Yeah,
Yeah, totally.
everybody knows.
It's the new therapy, the new trendy therapy.
this is the way.
So those two characters, I guess, going into season two, what does their journey look like from here? Like they had a pretty important story to go through in season one. Where are they in season two? Within what you can actually talk about without spoiling. Obviously, that's kind of tricky.
I'm excited to I mean, like we get to explore everybody else a little bit too, which is very exciting, and I'm excited to help that along. As the character Percy is really in a good position to help everyone, or a lot of the group anyway, like really explore who they are. Not because he's okay, but because he's racked with shame and guilt and is making bad decisions which force people to confront their problems. So, yeah, Percy's a bit of a mess, and just keeps he makes a few bad decisions because he really wants to impress everybody that he's not a complete fuck up.
I mean, bouncing off that, I feel like, this whole group is a little bit of a mess, which is somewhat endearing, I think. And I feel like with Pike, sort of in this part of her journey, she's still in that weird middle space with her faith of trying to figure out, is it my faith, or is some of it from me, and sort of trying to find a middle ground with those two, of marrying the two. And yeah, and she's just constantly worrying about everybody. I think she just wants everybody to just be happy and safe and alive. And that's just Pike's continuous journey of being mother hen.
Percy just wants everyone to like him.
Oh,
Doesn't care what happens to the rest of y'all.
yeah.
I'm so curious if these two characters kind of had if I'm right about it, and they had the sort of more important dynamic arcs in season one, who takes that role in season two?
Yeah, the really juicy arcs. The first one that we're going to jump into is the twins, right? I think a lot of people were left after season two going like, who are these two? Where did they come from? How did they find their way into this group? That's the question for all these characters. So we're going to get a really healthy dive into who the twins are in the early part of the season. We will visit some of their homesteads, and we will get a nice peek into Grog and Pike's relationship and how that started, where their beginnings came from, as well as seeing Keyleth in the incredible collection of Ashari across Exandria. We're going to visit her backstory and everything that lies in wait for her, especially her real responsibility as she completes her Aramente. So for us, it's really exciting to set up, the expectations that are on the shoulders of some of these characters, and start to plant the seeds of where the story is going to go.
And it sounds like it'll be much more globe-trotting, locations.
Yes.
We're jumping off Taldore. We're leaving on a jet. Singing doesn't translate in this, does it? Okay.
But we don't have Scanlan with us, so
No,
That's true.
in spirit.
Leave it to the bard.
Yes, in spirit.
Yeah, I've only watched the beginning of season two so far, so I am not that far in, but so far so good. Yes. Okay, so what did you take from season one? Like that was your first foray into creating this show, obviously. Now, what did you learn from that experience that you've taken into season two with you, that you sort of feel like, okay, now we can do this better, or we learned this lesson from what we fucked up the first time around, or whatever? Sorry, pardon my French. But
No,
you
no.
guys swear constantly in the show. So
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
exactly. It's totally fine.
100%. Yeah, I mean, what season one was, one of its main purposes was to establish, right, for not just our old fans what the show looks like, what the characters are going to be like, what the dynamics are like, but for people that are coming to it for the first time, where is this place? What do these characters want, and where are they going? What are some of the things they're coming up against? Now that we've done a lot of that establishing and gotten that out of the way, we're really trying to zero in on the individual stories, what makes them tick, what happens when they come up against their own individual challenges. And in this little group, this family of theirs, where are the little mini relationships? Who becomes stronger? Who gets tested? Where does fracture or friction start to develop? And that for us was really the beauty of tabletop RPG storytelling, because you can go in really, really deep on those things. You can go in with a microscope and really flesh out what the individual personalities are like, what are their quirks, and for us, that's the challenge, is to be able to deliver those as well in this animated medium, especially in a half-hour format. And so season two will be much more about getting into these characters, getting into their minds, what's at stake for them as they move forward, and then really realizing what lies ahead for all of them in the grander scale of Exandria. God, I tried to answer that all in one. What
That was
about you
great.
guys? Shut up.
I learned how rickety my home studio is and desperately tried to improve it. Better blankets is really what I learned.
There you go.
Well, yeah, because
Better sound perfect.
you were working during COVID
Mm.
for a lot of this. I imagine, right?
Yeah.
Which must have been its own just like huge challenge.
Yeah, that has definitely been its continuous challenge, having us all recording separately. And for most projects, we'd all do voiceover for other things. That is definitely one thing we do miss, is being able to record as an ensemble together. The benefit of what it is we're doing for Legend of Vox Machina is it's a story that we all lived for 5 years, 3 of which were on stream. We know these characters intimately, in and out, and the relationships and dynamics are second nature to us. So even when we're having to record independently, we all have a very strong sense of each other's performances and our emotional, energy, and being able to kind of still feel like we're present and expect what the dialogue would sound like as we record separately. And it's been really cool to watch it come together in the edits and see how well it ends up coming out at the end, even though we know most of this was recorded at great distances and at different times. So that's definitely been a challenge.
So it looks like quite a few guest stars are coming to season 2. Who are you excited to, or who are you excited to work with on this project? Who are you excited for audiences to see?
Who can we
or
talk
hear?
about?
Well, anybody that's been announced, which is a lot of them, so
Okay.
you can just call them out.
Henry Winkler.
I was going to say, can we talk about Henry Winkler yet? Is that cool?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's announced.
All right, Henry Winkler.
Yeah, he was announced.
The Fawns, we love them in Barry. We were just looking for that older wise sound that also had so much outward empathy and heart. Oh, so good.
I am
Lance Reddick.
Yeah, I was about to say Lance Reddick. I've been such a fan of his work for so long, since The Wire, Corporate, Destiny. He's just such an incredible performer, both in drama and comedy. And he was kind of like one of those. Can we get him to do Thordak? I would love for him to portray like the dangerous leader, essentially, of the Chroma Conclave. I think he'd be a wonderful take on it. And then when he accepted and then continued to just blow my whole idea of him out of the water, it's so cool.
Also,
You're going to say
Cheech
it.
Marin.
Uh-huh.
I mean,
Big win.
Pretty good.
Play. Who's Cheech?
Without
Can
without spoilers,
compare?
you might have heard him in one of the trailers for season 2.
Okay.
He appears in a very psychedelic scene as one of the most beloved characters of Vox Machina. Excuse me.
Nice. So I think we're just about out of time, but I assume that a lot of people who watch the campaigns and watch this show, who are inspired by all of you, are and wanting to get into voice acting. Do you have any tips or suggestions or ideas for people who are trying to get into this business and do what you guys do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll hop off in this top here and say, voiceover, particularly in like animation, video games, it is acting. So having a nice voice, being able to do impressions, those are useful tools. But the core of it is still being able to perform. And when I say perform, that the context is you're given a character with minimal context, a script that more often than not you didn't get a chance to see in advance, and you're put within a glass booth, glass and foam booth, with little to no preparation, across from a room of 5-6 people, and an audio engineer that goes, "Okay, first line, go." And so it can be a very intimidating thing. So through practice, both learning as a performer and just cold reading dialogue, and just honing your ability as a performer is a huge part of it beyond just the voice aspect of it.
Awesome.
Don't learn a Henry Winkler impersonation. They've already got one, and he's probably better at it than you. So.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I think we have to wrap. I've got the notification. So thank you so much for your time. It's great meeting all of you, and I'm really looking forward to the season. And congratulations and everything. So
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Take care,
Appreciate you,
buddy.
man.
all right, take care.
Bye.
Bye.